We all love exploring huge worlds, and there's been no shortage of them this year. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanks, the open world games of 2021. Starting off with number 10, it's Riders Republic. What kind of works as an amalgamation of Steep, which is kind of a wild, open world action sports game. You had a lot of the activities that you see in this game, as well as The Crew, which is the more open world, connected type gameplay, mashed it together and created something that I think works really well. Now, it's important to keep in mind this thing isn't perfect, but this is a game where you can do so many different, interesting, fun things. There's a ton of color, it looks beautiful, and it will absolutely occupy a ton of your time. Like, there's all the stuff you saw in Steep, as well as like jetpack races and slightly more ridiculous things on this absolutely huge open world map. That's not to say it doesn't have its minor issues. There's some technical glitches, there's some little things along the way that you'll probably find weird, but they pretty much have the mix just about right with this game, and once you pick it up, it's hard to put it down. Riders Republic's out on pretty much everything, so if you've got an extreme sports itch, this is where to scratch it. At number 9 is Valheim. Valheim's this big open world survival game with a unique Viking twist on it that brings both a colorful look to it as well as a PvE focus that makes it so you and your friends are more or less out to build, fight, build, fight, build, fight. It's kind of difficult to describe this game as something that you've never played before because it's certainly not. It's just a really competent game that gets a lot of things correct to the point where it's kind of difficult to say that there's one particularly better, especially given the colorful visuals and excellent pacing that it has. Like, survival games can be really enjoyable, but they can also be overwhelming. This one manages not to be. Like, they streamline a lot of survival elements so it doesn't feel like you're taking care of a constantly needy character, but it also doesn't do it to a point where you feel like you're not playing a survival game. Like, it is a really good example of the genre in terms of balance, pacing, and keeping you busy with stuff that actually feels worth doing. Valheim's out on PC, and it is incredibly fun. And number 8 is the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy Definitive Edition. Now, let me just say that this is a game that's really 3 games. They're old games, they've been remastered, and in some ways, it's great, and in others, like for the most part, the worlds look better than they've ever looked. There's aspects of the gameplay that are certainly improved as well. And these are still the same 3 Grand Theft Auto games you've known and loved for a long time. Or if you're going back to discover them, probably one of the better ways and times to do so. We don't know anything about Grand Theft Auto 6 yet, and this is literally 3 games with great open worlds, might I add, particularly by the time you get to San Andreas. There's some laughable stuff, like some of the new character models on some minor characters, and there are some technical problems as well, but I would suggest that most likely over time this stuff's gonna get ironed out, and really I've been having fun with it even though it's not really definitive, regardless of being called definitive. They got some work to do, but these are truly classic games that changed the world of gaming when they came out. And number 7 is Scarlet Nexus. This is a large-scale, open-world action RPG along the lines of a Platinum game or Devil May Cry. And if you're at home with that type of an arcadey battle style and want to sit down and buckle in for a pretty wild ride in terms of story, albeit a bit of a linear one, Scarlet Nexus is a fantastic example of exactly that. They do kind of load you up with some very typical stuff for the first hour, but once you get out of there, you're really sort of off to the races in terms of a ton of enjoyable combat and actually a fairly intriguing story that revolves around people having special powers, a military organization, these monsters called the Others, and it's kind of hard to sum up in a way that doesn't sound super typical, but when you go through it, it's done well and doesn't feel over the top like something you've been through before. And like I said, it's really kind of the combat that shines in this game anyhow. The story is above average, but I'd be less interested if you didn't have this fantastic fast-paced combat with like telekinesis and all this wild stuff. I would highly recommend this one. At At number 6 is Lost Judgment, the second in the Judgment sub-series, which itself branches off from the Yakuza games. Judgment doesn't deviate too far from the main formula, but you take a different perspective in that you are law enforcement rather than a member of the Japanese mafia. And Judgment was really a fantastic game in terms of the way it told its story, the type of combat in it, all of the various things. It had a couple of minor not great elements, particularly some of the chase sequences, and they cleaned those up. I wouldn't call them perfect in this game, but they will bother you significantly less to go through. But I like that they added a third stance in this one. It really sort of livens up combat, which was already good, like I said. Lost Judgment is pretty much the logical step in the series, and I'm really excited to see where it goes from here, because I think it is really a good jump from the first and retains the quality that pretty much every Yakuza game gives at this point. At number 5 is Subnautica Below Zero. This is a game that takes basically all of the elements that you came to love about Subnautica and adds in a little bit more of a storytelling element to it. You go to a new planet, you're investigating the death of your sister, and along the way you discover a whole bunch of stuff about the world of Subnautica, as well as indulge the gameplay mechanics on a larger set of circumstances, including a lot more on-land stuff, and obviously, as the title indicates, in below zero temperatures. Subnautica Below Zero is a fantastic follow-up to the original, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. At number 4 is Monster Hunter Rise, which was developed sort of in tandem with Monster Hunter World. It's kind of a take on the same idea, uses the Resident Evil engine, and introduces a large amount of verticality via a grappling hook dynamic that really, in my opinion, speeds up Monster Hunter in a manner that just keeps this game moving in a way that I think even parts of Monster Hunter World just seem totally foreign to. Like, it's not so different from Monster Hunter World that you're gonna jump into it and be like, what is this? But it adds something to it that changes a lot, and I think that it's mostly the verticality. There's also just like less investigation type stuff and more combat, but Monster Hunter Rise is just a fantastic example of a Monster Hunter game, and having it on Switch is of course a really great thing. Obviously Monster Hunter World is a little bit better looking, but I think at this point I can say I've generally had more fun with Rise. I'd actually be interested in what you guys think. Tell us in the comments. And number 3 is Far Cry 6, a game that does not reinvent the wheel by any means, but really comes out swinging as a great example of a Far Cry game. Fantastic villain, played by the guy who did Gus from Breaking Bad. Actually a fantastic main cast, whether you pick the male or female version of the main character. It's a voiced character, and it's actually really well done, which is not something I would have necessarily immediately expected out of a Far Cry game. But you also get all of this stuff that you've come to expect from Far Cry. You have bases, you've got cutscenes, you've got wild over-the-top action characters, and really you just got this absolutely beautiful locale that all of it goes down in. Yara is probably the best looking Far Cry location in several games, including New Dawn. It really takes advantage of the tropical color palette, and on top of that, it's just a really well done, well paced, well put together Far Cry game. At number 2 is The Ascent, an isometric RPG shooter in this big cyberpunk open world. This is a game that kind of came out of nowhere. Like, basically, it's this fantastic cyberpunk world that to say is just like incredible would be a massive understatement. Like, this is an 11-person staff that made one of the best looking cyberpunk games of all time, including, and I am definitely saying I think I might think it looks better than the cyberpunk game, but it's also a Diablo top-down type game that incorporates twin stick shooting elements in a manner that, in terms of gameplay, really works. There are a couple of minor complaints somebody might have about this game, talking about like the camera, but it's not going to be such a big detriment that I would say avoid the game. In fact, I would call this one of the best hybrids of a couple of different types of games I could imagine, and it's beyond beautiful. And finally, at number 1, it's Forza Horizon 5. Now, I am, of course, a bigger fan of the Horizon series in terms of Forza, because you get a bunch of this weird arcade stuff in the more realistic Forza world. The map is a fictionalized Mexico that, I mean, it's beyond beautiful, well done, incredible. You've got every aspect of this game looks as good as it possibly could. There's a near impossibly large amount of variety in the terrain and what you can see in this game. And considering it's Mexico and there's not really like snow, that's an impressive feat. But like you get to see like volcano stuff, you get to see coastal stuff, city stuff, small town stuff, tons of different types of terrain. It's really a phenomenal game. If you like Forza Horizon, this is really a fantastic Forza Horizon game. Probably my favorite so far. Couple of bonus games for you. First, Biomutant. Now, this is certainly not going to be the best action RPG you're ever going to play. It is a cool open world AA game that tries a lot of different stuff, but in my opinion was kind of hurt by being a full price $60 game. It does have the potential to be a hell of a series though, and I think that if you have an open mind, you can find some stuff that makes it really redeeming. Of course, some people absolutely friggin' hate it, so I don't know. You might be one of those folks. And the other game I want to point out is Gas Station Simulator, which is a game that is essentially about running a gas station in the middle of a desert. This is not a game that you want to play because it's like the best thing you have ever seen or anything like that. It's just a weird game, but like it's a fun game that has a ton of quirkiness to it. It certainly brings enough charm that I enjoy it. I think it's a little niche though. Some people may not love it. Worth the time, worth a try, but that's me. What do you think? Leave us a comment, let us know. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is of course a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable all notifications, and as always, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on Game Ranks.